This conference will now be recorded.
Anyone, what is a file system? So file system is a way, or you can say is a process that manages how the files are stored on disk and how efficiently they can be retrieved when user double click on a particular file. So the role of file system is similar the role of table of content in a book. Imagine a book that is not having the table of content, and you want to go, this chapter number 8 that is on page number 101. So, like if you are not having table of content, then you need to flip all the pages, right, to go that particular chapter you are interested in. But if you are having table of content, then you can see at what page number this particular chapter is there. So you can directly go to that chapter. So the same role is played by the file system. If you want to, access a particular file, the file system will let you know that the file is currently located on these particular blocks. You know the if you talk about the uh, hard disk taxonomy or hard disk structure, then there are sectors and the blocks in the hard disk, right? Sector size is 512 byte. That is the minimum unit of an operating system, right? Like modern operating system can write only 512 byte chunk. Operating system cannot write only 200 bytes. Suppose you have created a file that is of size 200 bytes, then operating system has to pad remaining 300 bytes so that it can write. Okay, so that is the first point. Okay, I will discuss these terms briefly so that you can be we can go ahead with this session. So in this particular session, we are going to discuss three anti-forensics techniques: data hiding, secure deletion, and time stamping. You might be aware about this, normal deletion. Normal deletion doesn't mean your data has gone. Even if you do shift delete, that doesn't mean your data has gone. So the normal deletion is similar to like you are just removing the table of content from the book. You are not deleting or you are not removing the chapter itself, right? Only you have removed the table of content, then that is the normal deletion. That means the block that the blocks that are containing the data are still there on the disk, right? So that is normal deletion. Even you format your hard disk or pen drive or any storage media, still data is there. So that's why there is the term that is secure deletion that ensures data is not recoverable. Even you apply the sophisticated recovery tools, you cannot get the data. That is the meaning of secure deletion. Data hiding, like data hiding is hiding information into a file, into an image, or or hiding the communication of the message. That we will see what are the different data hiding techniques. Then time stamping. Time stamping is like when you say you are a tech savvy user, that you know what timestamps are recorded by the file system. Even you open a file, modify a file, create a file, everything is recorded by the file system. Nowadays every file system has the sophisticated and advanced monitoring and logging mechanism. They monitor you, they log you, everything that you do with the computer, right? Whether you open a file, run an application, visit a URL in a web browser, do a remote login, whatever you do, everything is being recorded by the by the operating system. Normal user, that say Windows user, they are not aware what logs they are, what traces they are creating on their system. So time stamping is one technique. You can manipulate these timestamps. The timestamps are being recorded by the file system, right? Or you can say by the operating system. But you can also manipulate your timestamp. Say you have created a file today. Now you want to backdate that file so that you can tell to anyone that I have created this file back in 2019 before coronavirus. Okay, so like you can do that manipulation. So that manipulation of timestamp is known as time stamping, because this terminology has there was the black hat uh, you can say researcher, so that created a tool that can manipulate the timestamp in 2005. Since then the terminology is like the way timestamps are modified, that particular method is known as time stamping. Time stamping is the manipulation of timestamp. So these three anti-forensic technique I am going to discuss in this particular lecture. Okay, so what is this anti-forensic? Those who are into this area of cyber security and digital forensics, they might be knowing that digital forensics is a branch of forensic science where you employ scientific methods to to uh, to gather, to collect, to analyze and to represent the digital evidences, to represent and report the digital evidences in the court of law, provided that the evidences are related to a cyber crime. So cyber crime is a kind of crime where a computer has been the target, or computer is used as to commit the target by the perpetrator. Okay, so anti-forensics, like you have done a cyber crime, right? Then definitely you have created a few you have created few logs on the system, because you have used the system to commit that particular crime. Definitely you are leaving the traces. So how you can limit yourself so that your traces will be minimum, right? Your traces will be minimum, or you are not at all creating the traces. So that is the anti-forensics. Imagine the situation: you are, you are killing a person using a rod, and you are wearing the gloves so that your fingerprint on rod, that particular bar should not be there, right? That's why anti-forensics is a way so that you can attempt to limit the identification, limit the collection and validation of electronic evidences. So in 2005, the Rogers, Rogers, he is a scientist, so he proposed the definition of anti-forensic. He said that anti-forensic are attempts to negatively affect the existence, amount and quality and quantity of the evidence from the crime scene, right? Like you are not leaving the traces. That is the meaning. Okay, so the ultimate purpose of anti-forensics is to frustrate forensics tools, investigators, and investigation as well. So to that is you are using a collection of tools so that you are leaving minimum traces or not, or at all traces. So coming to the taxonomy of this anti-forensics, so there are different ways to achieve anti-forensic. First is data hiding, that is that is again divided into many categories. Like you can say encryption as a way to as a way for data hiding. How? Because encryption is scrambling the plain text into something known as ciphertext, right? If you are given ciphertext, you are not able to get the meaning out of it. So that is the encryption. Essentially, in data hiding, especially in encryption, you are not hiding the communication of message, you are hiding the meaning only, right? How it is different from steganography? Steganography is hiding the information and communication as well, right? So that is the difference. artifact wiping, you are applying privacy cleaner tool. You might be aware with this tool CCleaner, that cleans all the traces that you are leaving on your system, maybe your Android device, maybe your Windows device. So this cleaning utilities are there, file wiping utilities are there, degaussers are there. Like if you want to physically disrupt a particular hard disk, then you can purchase degausser. Degausser is a hardware that applies magnetic force to disrupt uh, storage device such as hard disk. So no, I'm not going into these details. There is a beautiful paper by Ibrahim Begli that is on topic anti-forensics, furthering digital forensic science through a new extended granular taxonomy. So whatever taxonomy Rogers suggested in 2006, he further extended this taxonomy and published a research paper in 2016 in this premier journal of investigation, that is digital investigation. Okay, coming to the depending upon the objective, I'm coming to the first objective is data hiding. Second that I will cover is secure deletion. Third is our tag stumping. So depending upon the objective, data hiding may have different contexts. Cryptography, as I said, that is hiding the message, but the communication, not the communication of the message, like you can say encryption, right? Steganography, hiding the communication of the message as well. Watermarking, we are adding sufficient metadata. Metadata is data about the data, so that we can establish the ownership. So these may be the three data hiding techniques broadly, I can say. So now I will discuss the new technique of data hiding, that I can also hide my data into the blocks of a file that have been assigned, right, by the file system. So before going into that particular detail, we need to know the granularity at the hard disk level. We need to know what are the sectors and traces. So as I said, a sector contain 512 bytes, and this is the minimum size operating system can write on disk. So that is the first point. Second point is there are a group of 8 sectors to form a data unit, and that data unit is known as the cluster or block. So different operating system use different terminology. Cluster is used by the Microsoft, block is used by the this Linux operating system. So or you can say Linux file system. What is the Linux file system? That is ext4, extended 4. And what is the file system adopted by Windows operating system? That is the NTFS, new technology file system. That is the proprietary file system Microsoft is using since 90s. Okay, so we have seen two things. Sector size is 512 bytes, and 8 sectors are grouped to form a data unit, and that is the minimum unit a size can have, a file can have on the disk. So you have, I think you have noticed this, when you right click to any particular file and go to properties, you can see there are 2 sizes, right? If you see the if you go to this figure, size and size on disk. So there are 2 sizes over here for a file, right? Size stands for logical size. That means the actual number of bytes written in that file. And size on disk is something that is the physical size on disk. So as you know, data unit is 4 KB. That means 8 into 512 bytes, that is 4096. So you cannot, the particular block, at least one block has to assign for a file, because that is the minimum data unit. If you are creating a file of size less than 4 KB, then at least that particular block is assigned. So there is the you can say there is the difference between logical and physical size. Logical size is 2.19 kb and physical size is 4096. So only you can see there are over here is the term slack space. This is buzzword in digital forensics. A file has been sorry, a block has been assigned to a file, but that block is not properly utilized. So what is the slack space? Slack space is the portion of a block that has been assigned but not fully utilized. So unutilized portion in a allocated block is known as slack space, because I'm not completely utilizing that block that has been assigned to me. Again, like to understand this clear, like up in a table of in a book you are having table of content, right? And in book, in that particular book, there are so many chapters. Each chapter is on the pages, right? Suppose chapter number 8 is on 16 pages, that particular chapter number 8. So the last page may not be completely utilized by that particular chapter. So if the chapter ends in chapter ends in the half of that page, only utilizes the half portion of the last page, then the remaining half portion is unutilized, right? Similarly, each now you can understand this clear, each block will have the slack space. Why each file, whatever file I am creating on my disk, will have the slack space. Why? Because I'm not completely utilizing the last block that have been assigned to that file. So that is the slack space will always in the last block of a file. Suppose file size is 9 kb. Okay, so logical size is 9 kb. What will be the size on disk? That will be 4 into 3, because you always assign blocks in multiple of 4 kb, because you always assign blocks. The block is the minimum unit that you can assign. So 4 by this एक block तो assign करना ही पड़ेगा फाइल को. If file size is 9 kb, logical size 9 kb, तो मुझे 3 ब्लॉक असाइन करने पड़ेंगे for that particular file. That means 4 into 3, 12 kb. So if logical size is 9 kb, size on disk will be 12 kb. And what will be the slack space? 12 kb minus 9 kb, that is 3 kilobytes. So that will be slack space. That means I can still write 3 kb of data into that file, right? So that is the data heading. If I know the method, I can write data at the end of the file. There is end of the file flag. Every file ends with end of the file flag, right? That's how the operating file system know where the file is ending, right? There is the flag. Similarly, like there is the start flag, similarly there is end of file flag. So if I know any method that I can bypass the file system and I can directly write after end of file, then definitely I'm able to hide my data. So that is the new method that I found how we can hide data. Okay, so I did an experiment for that. My experiment was that I was having a hard disk of size 1 TB, and that hard disk was completely filled. Completely, that means the red sign you were seeing, you cannot write any single byte on the hard disk. Still I was able to hide 13.65 GB of data into that particular 1 TB completely filled hard disk. How I was able to hide that information? Because of the slack space, because of the unutilized portion in the allocated block, of a file. And what block will be that? That will be the last block. So you can I did this experiment during my MTech, and suppose the cluster size is 4 KB, then you can say the on an average 2 KB you can hide. Like file size cannot be in multiple of 4 KB. कोई भी फाइल आप क्रिएट करेंगे 4 के मल्टीपल्स में नहीं होगी, राइट? Last block will definitely, there are 99.9% chances the last block will have this slack space. You can randomly pick any file and you can go to properties and you can check the file size. Definitely there will be difference between the this size and size on disk. Those who are using Windows, they can currently check this. You can pick any file, go to properties, and you right click on that file, go to properties and see the file size, both the file size, है ना? So I'm sure like आज तक आपको एक ही फाइल साइज पता था कि जो फाइल का साइज ये है, बट देयर आर टू फाइल साइज, लॉजिकल साइज एंड physical size, and this size on disk, something that is physical size. So definitely there is a mismatch, and that difference we can utilize to hide our information. I hope I'm clear and you are getting my point. Okay, so coming to this, what is the impact of cluster size on select space? Why the designers of the file system thought to have the cluster size as 4 KB? 4 KB cluster size क्यों लिया? Why not 2 KB? Why not 8 KB or 6 KB? So can you give any justification, any answer regarding that? Why the file size is 4 KB, or what will be the impact of this cluster size or block size on the disk utilization? Anyone? What will be the impact of that? Okay, so like what if I talk about the cluster size or block size is 4 KB, then what will be the minimum slack space and what will be the maximum slack space? Can you answer this? What will be the minimum slack space? Minimum slack space can be 0, right? Because I'm saying that my file is, the file size is in multiple of 4 KB. If file size, actual file size is 12 KB, and the size on disk is also 12 KB, then there is no slack space. That means the last phase of that chapter is completely utilizing that page, right? So there is no slack space. We cannot write any sentence or any word in the last page of that particular chapter. What will be the maximum slack space? Am I audible? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
So you're audible.
Okay. What will be the maximum slack space? Again, think using that analogy of book. Like the last page of the chapter is having only one word written on that. However, the complete page is assigned to that chapter, right? But the last page of that chapter is having only one word written on that, then full stop. Then around, you can say that I am creating a file of 1 byte only. You can create a file of 1 byte, right? You just write a single word. You can create a file of 1 byte, write single word, single byte. Suppose you have written C, then close that file, text file, then save that file. What will be the file size? Size on disk will be 4 KB. but you are using only one byte. So what is the maximum select space? That is 4096 minus 1, that is 4095. So what will be the impact if you see the figure 5? What will be the impacts of cluster size on select space? As you increase the cluster size, definitely you are also increasing the select space, because what will be the maximum select space in a file system with 8 KB cluster size? That means 8 KB minus 1 byte, right? So as you increase the cluster size, you are increasing the select space. So that is the first point. Second point, what if I decrease the cluster size? If I decrease the cluster size to be 2 KB, so that means I'm grouping only 4 sectors, 512 into 4, that is 2048 KB. So if cluster size is 2 KB, then what will be the impact of this on the disk? Definitely you are reducing the select space, right? 2 KB cluster will have maximum select space of 2048 minus 1. Definitely you are reducing the select space, but for the same, for the file of 9 KB, you were having like when the block size was 3 KB, this 4 KB, then 3 blocks were assigned to that particular file, right? But you have selected the cluster size as 2 KB, then how many blocks will be assigned to that particular file? 2 into 5, right? That means 5 blocks have been assigned. So the point is, if you decrease the cluster size, you are creating so many of blocks. That means block handling will be tough, right? If you are increasing the page size in the book, then definitely number of pages in the book will be less, right? But again, the cluster, the select space will be high. But if you are reducing the page size, that means pocket size book, then definitely number of pages will be more. So handling similarly, like if you are reducing the this cluster size, then you are creating so many blocks, and that will be difficult for managing so blocks by the file system. That means you are degrading the performance, file system performance. So that is the second point. So I can say that all file system will have the select space, and select space is also termed as internal fragmentation. What is external fragmentation? External fragmentation is like ideally all the blocks are also numbered on the disk, right? All the blocks are numbered. Ideally, if blocks sequential blocks are assigned to that file, that will be, then there will be no external fragmentation. But if blocks are not sequentially assigned, say block number 101 is assigned to file, block number 102 is assigned to that file, block number 104 is not assigned, 103 is also not assigned. So I'm not assigning blocks sequentially. So that is external fragmentation. I'm creating loops or holes. Sorry, I'm creating holes in my hard disk. Then that is termed as external fragmentation. Okay, so you can see the last point. What will be the average amount of space that is lost to select space? You can calculate this. So cluster size divided by 2, that will be the average select space. You can say on an average, every file will have a select space of 2 KB, provided that the cluster size is 4 KB. Similarly, if cluster size is 8 KB, then what will be the average select space? 4 KB, right? आधा तो बच ही रहा होगा लास्ट ब्लॉक में, आधा पोर्शन may not be utilized. That we can generalize for all the files. So now I am having the number of files on my disk, then you can multiply this with number of files. So like what will be the average amount of space that is proportionate to the number of files as well as the cluster size, right? If you increase the cluster size, we are wasting more storage on the disk. If you increase the number of files on the disk, we are also wasting space on the disk. You can say that. So that is regarding the data heading. So I will demonstrate this how I can hide data in a particular file. So I will demonstrate that using Ubuntu. Ubuntu is having this VMAP tool that can. So I will demonstrate that. Okay. So I will switch to the Ubuntu computer. So before that, let us discuss the another data hiding technique. Okay, so another anti-forensics technique that I said is the secure deletion. Okay, so I discussed that normal deletion doesn't mean your data is gone. Your data is still there. Only the linking between the file and its parent directory is lost. That means file content is still there. Okay. So what is the purpose of secure deletion? Purpose of secure deletion is like we need to destroy that data, sensitive data at the end of its life. Data is also having its life. Like during this period, data is sensitive, and after this, that data is no longer sensitive. So every organization that deals with sensitive data, especially like financial organizations, those organizations who say SBI, so they are also having your credentials. They are storing your credentials. They are storing your credit and debit card information. Everything they are storing. So the organization who deal with the sensitive data, they need to employ data disposal policy. So what is the data disposal policy? That says that data must be destroyed at the end of its life. So every government organization that deal with sensitive data, they have the data disposal policy, right? Also, like in universities, we are having the examination section, and they have our our you can say exam papers, the copies and all. So they destroy, they shred all these copies, then they burn those copies, right? Similarly, if your data is stored on the disk, then what will be the method to securely erase the data? So that is the secure deletion. So what maybe the secure deletion has gone by various names in literature and in forensics as well. Secure deletion is also known as purging, sanitization, erasing, and I mean, there are so many this terms for the same purpose. So broadly there are four techniques of secure deletion. Uh, Built-in sanitize command, the manufacturer of the hard disk, the vendors, they are providing the commands like this SanDisk. They provide their commands so that you can remove the data. Like SSD, if you purchase SSD, there is a trim command by the vendor itself, and they will erase the data that is no longer in use. Second method may be the encryption. You can encrypt your hard disk or USB drive, then you delete the key only. So that encryption can also be seen as data deletion, because only the encrypted data is on the disk. You have deleted your key. So this method is very, very fast of deleting the data. Just a second, please. So encryption method is fast, but encrypted data remains on the disk. Third method is overwriting technique. So this is the widely adopted method for the storage media such as hard disk. So for Windows, there are so many software tools, that is dban, this eraser, disk wipe, secure erase. These tools are there that can do this job of secure deletion. On Linux, we are having command line tools like shred, srm. Srm stands for secure removal. DD stands for disk dump or data dump, you can say data dump. Then VC wipe. So these are the different software tools you are having on on different operating system. The purpose of all the tool is they are overwriting the blocks again and again. If your content is written on the blocks, then you are going to that those blocks and you are overwriting again and again. So there are 2 points over here. What I should, with what data I should overwrite, because I want to delete the sensitive information. Should I overwrite those blocks with garbage data or random data or with any pattern? And second point is how many times I will overwrite. So on these 2 points, overwriting rounds and the pattern. Pattern mean is the data with which you are overwriting, right? Whether you are overwriting with random data, whether you are overwriting with all zeros, whether you are overwriting with pseudo random numbers, or whether you are overwriting with all ones. So that may be the different pattern. So on these two things, overwriting rounds and pattern, there are number of government and industry standard for software overwriting based methods. So first method, first standard is by US Navy, that is that was proposed in 1993. That they say that overwrite the same location with 3 rounds, and what will be those rounds? Those rounds will be character, any character, then zeros and ones. Similarly, there are different standards like Peter Gutmann method is there. So there was the research paper. This author Peter Gutmann proposed or wrote a research paper back in 1996. So he suggested that at least, not at least, but he suggested that if we overwrite with 35 times, then definitely data will be gone. He didn't say that if I overwrite with 10 rounds, whether I can recover or data or not. He didn't say that, but he said that if you overwrite with 35 times, definitely with 100% assurance you are not going to retrieve that data. So that is the Peter Gutmann method, and Peter Gutmann method is used by like HIPAA Act is there in USA. If you talk about, they store the records of health record of US citizen. Imagine like health record of US president, that is very sensitive, right? So they have to use any standard to delete that data. So like HIPAA is having that Peter Gutmann method, that is also a standard. US Department of Defense, they also proposed their standard in 2001, and that standard says that we need to overwrite at least 3 times. And what will be the pattern? The character, any character, and its complement and another pattern. Believe me, if you overwrite with only single round, you are able to delete the data. But why they are suggesting, why all these government and industry standards, they are suggesting that, like, if you want the assurance like your data is completely gone, then definitely you need to write at least 3 times. So that is there. I couldn't find any standard by government of India as of now. Maybe Indian Army is having its own this overwriting method, but as of now government standard is not there. Coming to the tools provided by the Microsoft. So SDelete is one of the sys internal tool provided by Microsoft, and they use the Department of Defense standard DoD 520.2. Hello, anyone wants to say something? Okay, so you can download this tool from this docs.microsoft, and this is a command line tool. This tool can be used to securely delete a single file, directory, a volume, or the complete hard disk. You can also provide the number of passes. P stands for passes. As delete P, you can write any, like 3. That means 3 times you are overwriting. If you want to delete the file, you can use this parameter /s or -s, or you can provide the directory, or you can also provide the complete disk for overwriting. So shred is one of the command line tool in Ubuntu especially, or if you could not find this tool, you can also install that using sudo apt install shred. V stands for, if I write this command in Ubuntu, shred shred space VZN. So there are 3 parameters. V stands for verbose mode. So whatever the command is doing, it should write on my terminal or this on terminal itself. Z stands for the last overwrite pass should be with zeros. N stands for number of passes. So I am over here, I am giving 35. And ssd.pdf, PDF is my file to which I want to securely delete. Okay, so you can see these number of passes. Pass 1 random, again pass 1, pass 2 is something fixed, pass 2, pass 3 is there. You can see all the passes. Last pass will be 36 by 36 will be zeros. DD is very popular command line tool that can be used for so many purposes, including copying, including imaging, including this secure deletion, and for many purposes you can use that. So you can also use DD for secure deletion. Like Unix like operating system, they provide some special file with you, like deb0 is there, so that operating system can have a number of zeros from that device file. Similarly, they will also provide urandom, that is also a special file that serves as a pseudo that can give you pseudo random number generators. Okay, so they have implemented these device files in their file system, or you can say in their kernel, so that directly you can use them. So if you write sudo dd, if if stands for input file, you can give any input file, whether your USB device or the special file by the operating system. So over here I am giving deb0. Of OF stands for output file, where you need to write these zeros. So you can give your destination partition, destination file, or destination disk. Block size by default, what is the block size of your Unix file system or Linux file system? That is the 4096, 4 KB. Similarly, antivirus is also having the block size 4 KB. Okay, when you format your drive, then you always select the the file system which you want to format with. So you can definitely provide the any cluster size or block size. For full disk eraser, this is the command. For single file eraser, you can also provide that. Okay, so that is the dd command. Also, there is another command line tool in Ubuntu, You can also download that, that is SRM. RM is there already, you will find this RM stands for removal. You can remove the file, but removing means only you are breaking the link between the file and its parent directory. If you if you if you are deleting, that means data is there, but you are just deleting the links only, breaking the links only, so that file system cannot read what is the location of the file on disk, what are the actual number of blocks that have been assigned to that file, right? So prior deleting the file, if you know anyhow, if you know that these are the number of blocks assigned to that file, then definitely you can go to that location, you can dump the data using DD, and you can find your content. So I will also demonstrate that how you can recover if a file has been by mistake deleted by you. Okay, so this SRM stands for secure removal, that employs around 38 passes. First pass with zeros, 5 random passes with special device file, that is urandom, and 27 passes from Peter Gutmann, and next 5 passes from again urandom, and last you rename the file with random value, and then you are truncating. Then you now you can imagine how much this tool is, how much passes, how many passes this tool is using. 38 passes to delete a file. So before deletion, it is also renaming that file, then it is deleting. So it's a very useful tool that you can use to securely delete a file. So if I summarize this secure deletion part, then I can say that sanitizing storage media, whether it is SDD or SSHD or any flash drive, that is essential for data disposal, right? Any number of most number of tools and techniques and standards are available for these storage media, but they primarily focus on the number of passes and the pattern, right? Because that is the main thing. How many times I should write and what data I should write. That is based on these two parameters. There are different standards. There are so many privacy cleaner tools like CCleaner that also do this. That also wipe the evidence related to this incident, but definitely they are not using the secure deletion. They are just deleting the content. Okay. Peter Gutmann method, that is a popular method for achieving data security. So that suggests that there should be at least 35 passes for secure deletion on the storage media such as hard disk. But the overwriting method is not good method for the storage media such as solid state drives, SSD. Why? Because the solid state drives are having complete different internal structure from hard disk devices. They are the NAND based flash memory that actually they are the SSDs has got few limitations, that they are having actually the fixed number of overwrites, like 1 million overwrite, 1 million times you can overwrite the same block. But in hard disk, this is not the limitation. That's why like there are other limitations of SSDs. This other than this beer labeling, we have to manage the load on each block on the SSD, because if you are overwriting a single block with 1 million times, then definitely that block is going to that block will be the bad block now. So that block cannot be used, and then the entire SSD will be that will not be in good position. Okay, so that is the way they manages the beer on each block. That's why overwriting will always not go to the same place, because I have to manage the load on each block. So that is beer labeling technique is something implemented by the hard disk that prevents these tools to overwrite the same location again and again. That's why overwriting technique is not a good way to securely delete the data on SSDs. I think I'm clear to you. If you are having any doubt, please let me know so that I can discuss with you. Then I will go to the third anti-forensic technique, that is something known as time stamping. And then I will try to demonstrate all those. Okay, so let me close this as well. Okay, so coming to the time stamping, as I discussed, is a way to manipulate the timestamp of the file, right? For you, you might be knowing only 3 timestamp modified access created, that are MAC timestamp, but believe me, there are more than 16 different timestamps that are stored on disk. And one more thing, like you know the timestamp up to second precision, but the timestamps are stored up to nanosecond precision. So I will also show you what are the different 16 different timestamps and precision. Okay, so coming to the timestamp on NTFS file system and ext4 file system, and then we will also discuss what is the epoch date and time, because ultimately timestamp has to be calculated from a date and time that will be our reference time, right? So this 1st of January 1601, that is the epoch date and time from which we are calculating the 100 nanosecond intervals from that date to till date or for today. So suppose you are creating a file today, then how timestamps are calculated? You are calculating the number of seconds from that epoch date and time to this date, and you are fitting this integer, complete integer, into 8 bytes. So the timestamp on file system nowadays, modern file system is having 8-byte timestamp or 64-bit timestamp. Earlier they were using this 4-byte timestamp. So you might have heard about this 2000 year problem. So like when banks were using 4-byte timestamps, so on 1st of January 2000, all the banks were gone to that date, 1st of January 1601, because you cannot fit that integer into 4 bytes. So designers didn't thought of this at this time. So nowadays timestamps are up to 64-bit, and they are valid up to 2037. So 2037, after the year of 2037 they will be retired. So again we have to go to 8-byte timestamp, sorry, 16-byte or maybe 10 bytes. So coming to this timestamps, modified access inode metadata change, because this inode is the unique entity assigned to any object. Object may be your file, directory, or memory segment, or anything, your socket. So these are the different objects. So for each object we are assigning the unique number, similar to like we are having Aadhaar for each citizen of India, right? That Aadhaar is unique. Similarly, for file system, this inode number or something known as MFT number matters. For us, the file name matter, but for file system usually see the files in terms of the this inode or MFT number that is unique to that file. So if you know the inode number or this MFT number, then definitely you can get the metadata. And what is the metadata of a file? What the file name, file size, file timestamp, when it was created, deleted, modified, accessed. Then the important part is the file location. What is the physical location? Like your Aadhaar is having your date of birth, name, father name, then address. So same attributes are there for the file. The file name, file size, file address means file actual blocks that have been assigned to file, because you are having some number of blocks in that in a hard disk, and say 5 blocks have been assigned to that particular file. So the number of blocks as well as the from which number to from which block to which block. So blocks are also numbered on the disk. So exact 5 blocks have been assigned to this file, and what are those 5 block numbers? We also need to know that, and that resides in the data attribute of MFT. This Linux file system is also recording your deletion timestamp. When you delete the file, then the date and time is also recorded, but that is not currently recorded by NTFS file system. So these are the different time file system and their time resolution, the precision up to they record the timestamp, and the epoch date and time. From there they are calculating. So this ext-t3, that is the predecessor of ext-t4. ext-t4 is recording deletion timestamp, but ext-t3 was recording only 3 timestamps. NTFS, that is the proprietary file system used by the Microsoft since early operating system like DOS and all. HFS is the file system that was used by the Apple, but they have now shifted to APFS, that is Apple file system. And what is the epoch date and time? They are calculating that timestamp from 1st of January 1970. Okay, so like you can see, Microsoft, Apple, and Unix developer, they all are using different epoch date and time. Also, they all are storing the timestamp to different precision. Apple is storing up to nanosecond. This Microsoft is storing up to 100 nanosecond. So there is the difference between the resolution and the epoch date and time as well. So if you go to if you pick any file and go to properties, again you can see 3 timestamps: created, modified, accessed. So each, like as I said, each file will have the unique MFT number, and MFT number is again have the attributes. Similarly, we are having different attributes on our Aadhaar number, like name and this address, then DOB and father name. Similarly, unique MFT entry is having SI attribute that will give you, the SI stands for standard information, that will give you who is the owner of the file, what is the file timestamps when it was created, deleted, modified. Also MFT entry or inode number modified. File name, as the name suggests, file name attribute contains the information such as what is the file name, file size, again a duplicated set of timestamp. So like one can ask, like, sir, what is the need of storing timestamp in different attributes? The same timestamp in different attributes. You are also storing the timestamp in SI attribute. You are also storing the timestamp in FN attribute. What is the need of that? So like, because if like any potential attacker or the tech savvy user has done the manipulation, then definitely I can compare the values in both the attributes, right? So like I have to design my file system in such a way that the file name attribute can only be manipulated by the by the kernel, and the SI attribute can be manipulated by the user APIs. Like you have written your program, you can manipulate the file system, this SI attribute, but the FN attribute can only be modified by the trusted applications or the kernel. So that is where, like, you can download any time stamping tool. There are so many tools on internet you can find, but they are not manipulating the timestamp in FN attribute. Yeah, and data attribute contains the number of blocks that have been assigned to that particular file. Okay, so moving ahead. So like, if you want to know what are the different timestamp on on for a particular file on that is created on a device on a disk drive, then you can use the tsk command. Tsk is a this forensic toolkit. It's a it provides so many command line utilities that will give you information about the file system, information about a particular file. Also it can dump the content in hexadecimal, right? Everything need to be stored in binary, right? For everything is stored in binary, right? So you can completely dump the block. If you dump the block, you will find the information in hexadecimal. Like if PDF is stored in 3 blocks, then definitely the content is in 3 blocks. But that is the PDF reader that is actually converting that human readable, converting that hexadecimal bytes into human readable format. Imagine a PDF, you are given a PDF and you are not having the PDF reader. So the content is there, right? But that reader is just converting that content into your format so that you can read that. But ultimately, do low level analysis means we are analyzing the content on the white stream level. We are analyzing the content so that you can download the hex editor and you can see the content of any file, right? For text txt file, there is no converter or no reader because that are the raw files, right? But for each file type, whether doc file, pdf file, mp4, jpg, we need a something reader, right? We need to convert that hexadecimal into something readable format. So in forensics, we always go to the low level analysis. We are going to the blocks. We are not using any readers or any that parsing tool, you can say. Parsing is nothing but conversion of from unreadable to readable, human readable format. So similarly, like if you are given a file that is you are given the hexadecimal bytes of a file, then how you can get the timestamp, from which offset to which offset timestamps are there, how you can decode that timestamp, that is something you need to know. Okay, in if I talk about in forensics. So over here you can see the attribute values by SI, that is security ID, also known as SID. For each user on the system, there is a SID. You can query the SID using command line tool WMIC user account. Let me also show you. WMIC user account, then get SID along with the name, right? So you can see there are different users on this system. Administrator is there, guest, HP. So each user is having different privileges. There is a hierarchy of users. Like administrator is the highest privileged user that can install application, that can run PowerShell, that can create new user accounts. So administrator, then the something known as power user, then your guest, then normal user. So there is hierarchy with each user. So you can query what, but this command should be run by the run by the administrator only. So if you run the command prompt in run as administrator, then only you will get. So you can also find the SID with each name, right? There is the SID with each name. So SID is again a you can say unique ID assigned to that user. In file name attribute, you will see the name of the file, the parent MFT number. That is something very important. If there is no parent, then means that file is known as the orphan file. And if file is not having any child, that means the file is not under this subdirectory, then the file name known as the zombie. So there are the different terminologies for this. If I remove the link of this file to its parent, then definitely file system is not it is just like deleting the entry from the table of content for the particular chapter. Chapter is there in the book, but I'm just deleting the I'm just removing the entry from the table of contents. So normal deletion is that one. Parent MFT number is, we need to know the parent MFT number while we do the file recovery. So there is the difference between file recovery and file carving. So file recovery is recovery of the content based on the file system. You are given a file system, then only you can do the file recovery, right? File carving is something that if your file system is corrupted, that means you are not given the table of content. The file system is corrupted, then definitely data recovery is very, very difficult, and that data recovery is known as file carving, provided that the file system is corrupted. So, as I said, that this term time stamping originated from the utility that was timestamp. So that was, these two authors, they demonstrated how they can modify the timestamp in the Black Hat conference. There is a conference like for all those who kind of offensive, those who work in offensive security. So perpetrator of the crime can use this technique to hide. Also, the malware can use this hide to mislead the forensic analyst. Like malware can use to manipulate the timestamp. So that if any antivirus detect that, like suppose your system got infected today, so with any virus, or with any virus or with any malware program, so you will analyze the system, then you find a file that was created back in 2019. Okay, you can, that was created in 2019. Okay, so like you are not going to touch that file. You will say that you will be under the impression that this file was on my system, this file has been on my system, so this file is not responsible for infection, so you will leave that file. So this is the misleading. Like if you talk about the physical crime scene, then imagine the situation: you are hitting a person with a bar, and you are leaving the blood of different person over there, so that the forensic analyst should be cannot identify who is the actual perpetrator. Again, the anti-forensics technique. That so the point is, like, when you apply or when you use any forensic tool, you will not be able to modify the timestamp in FN attributes. So if you can use any tool that can give you the timestamp from any FN attribute, and then you compare both the timestamp, then definitely you can identify the timestamping, because there will be the difference between both the timestamps. That is the first point. Second point, like, no tool is able to manipulate the timestamp up to nanosecond precision. That means if you find the values of nanosecond part at zeros, then you can suspect that the file has been the more timestamp of this particular file has been manipulated, because like there are 1 divided by 9 to the power 10 chances, 1 divided by 9 to the power 10. So there is one chance out of these number of space that bits, these nanosecond part can be 0. So if nanosecond part is 0, that means there are more than 99% chances that you can say the file timestamp have been manipulated. So these are the two ways you can identify the manipulation. So I did the comparison of different time stamping utilities that you can find over internet. So you can over here see that bulk file changer is one time stamping utility. You can download that. Attribute changer is another one, SK timestamp is another one, Abyss touch is there, set mag is there, attribute magic is there. So out of these 6 timestamping utility, only this set mag is the tool that is able to manipulate the timestamp in both the attribute and up to nanosecond precision. So if the attacker is a sophisticated attacker, if he is using this particular tool, that tool is actually bypassing the entire file system, going to that particular blocks of the file, then it is manipulating the timestamp. So like this is kind of you are not dependent, all the tools are dependent on the file system API, but this particular tool is more advanced tool, and it is not leaving any traces of its manipulation. So uh, that is the time stamping over here. If you have any doubt, please let me know before I move to this demonstration part. Okay, so now let me connect my Ubuntu system so that I can. So far, I have discussed that I said that only two attributes SI and FN are storing your timestamps. Let me correctly say that there are more than other attributes in the MFT entry that are also storing your timestamp. That is index root, and this another one is this index root, and you can find another one over here, index allocation. So these are the two different, apart from SI and FN, they are also storing your timestamp. So you can see 4 timestamp in SI, 4 timestamp in FN, 4 timestamp in index root, and 4 timestamp of index allocation. So total of 4 into 4 into 4 into 4, like 4 plus 4, sorry, 4 plus 4 plus 4. So that is 16. So no tool is manipulating the timestamp in FN except this setMAC. So that is, you can find this tool on the GitHub. You can search this setMACE. MACE stands for modified access created and entry modified. Apart from the timestamp in these attributes, the timestamps also recorded in log file and USN journal. These are the different file system, you can say residue, where you can also find the timestamp. So you can go to this GitHub, then setMAC, and you can find this too. Just a second, please. Just a minute, please. I'm connecting my system, Ubuntu system. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate this data heading part first. Then I will move to secure deletion, then time stamping. So just as
Okay, sir.
so for data heading, what is the what should we know? We should know the what are the actual blocks that have been assigned to that file. And second thing, what second thing is like what is the last block, because that file will have this like a space in the last block only, right? Because all the previous blocks till the last block will be filled. That's why the last block has been assigned. Similarly, like the last page in the chapter may have the slack space. Before the last page, all the blocks will be assigned. All the pages will be completely utilized. Hello, organizers. I'm not able to download this, tool on this meeting tool on Ubuntu. Uh,
Sir, which one, sir?
this Go meeting tool.
Uh, if you'll click on the link, sir, it will be downloaded, sir.
Acha, on Ubuntu as well, sir.
Sir, that mail what we have mailed you, na, sir. If you'll click on the link, it will automatically
Yeah.
start downloading in the web browser itself, sir.
Okay. Just a second.
Yeah.
Uh, just a second, please.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, please do it. Not a problem, sir.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, I'll request all the participants that you please be patiently waiting for the same, and we will just be joining back by Dr. Bhupinder Singh. Thank you.
Arjun sir, it is saying your browser doesn't support meeting this one. So let me-
Sir, you can
Okay.
mail me
Okay.
the PPT if you want. I
Okay, sir.
can
I am also
start
having.
presenting from here.
I can cover, sir, on this laptop as well. So let me again share my screen. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I am having this image. This is the image of my USB drive. You can take the image of any tool that I discussed so far. You can use using DD. You can use FTP, NCase. There are so many amazing tools that are actually creating the bit by bit copy of the source disk, right? So let me. This is the WSL. WSL, I hope is you are aware of this. WSL is the new feature that is introduced in Windows 10, so that the users of Windows 10 can also use the command line utilities that are generally offered by the Ubuntu, and you can also use that in Windows. So both the platform are coming together, so that the utilities you generally use in Windows can also be used in Linux, and Linux utility on the other hand, Linux utilities can also be used in Windows, right? So yeah, over here you can see I can run ls command, whatever I run on the Ubuntu, I can also run over here using this WSL. WSL stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux. Okay, so let me quickly go to that. I can see there are. This is my pen drive. Right? This is the image. Okay, so if I use any TSK command, whether it is TS stat, sorry, FS stat, then NTFS, the NTFS 001. So you can query the file system on this particular image, because that is the first thing you need to know, what is the file system on that particular image that is given to you for the analysis, right? So file system is NTFS, then only you can know, because each file system is having different way of storing and retrieving the data. What are the number, what is the first cluster to the MFT, and what is the size of MFT, what are index record size, the block size, you can say range from which to which, these are the, and in which attribute you can find the file timestamp SI attribute that I talked about. You can also find the file the timestamps in FN attribute along with the file name and file size. And also I said that FN attribute is something that is can only be manipulated by the trusted applications by the kernel. Okay, so that is the first point. We have queried what is the current file system on the. Now I will see what are the different files on this particular image. Okay, so I will run FLS. FLS is, now I can use this hyphen app NTFS. Now I am specifying explicitly, I am specifying the file system on my images NTFS. So over here FLS stands for you are listing all the files on this disk. So all the files on this image will be listed. So I am having, this is the image of my pen drive, 16 GB pen drive, number of files you can see. You can also see the deleted files and hidden files. The files that starts with, you can see there are two options over here. D stands for directory. So this application for assistant professor AU. This is the directory, and star stands for deleted directory. This file, this folder has been, or directory has been on my system. However, I deleted that. Okay, so that I can get the MFT number. MFT number is very essential to do the low level analysis. Your Aadhaar number is very essential to know more about you, from where you come, like what is your DOB, what is your this address, and name and all. So if I know the MFT number, I can definitely know more about that particular file. So let me now use any MFT number, and I will also use the istat, sudo istat -f NTFS is this the file system that I am using, and now I am giving the 30780. This is the MFT number for this particular file. Okay, so 30780. What I'm doing, it is like running. You are a system admin of, you are having the complete database of this other IDs, right? UIDI. So now you are the system admin. You are giving the Aadhaar number. You are getting the detail of that particular person you are interested in. Similarly, I'm giving the MFT number to my file system. File system is nothing but a database, right? Where all the metadata about the file you can get. And file system is responsible for managing the files directories efficiently on the disk. So the metadata, I stands for inode statistics. Inode, that means the Aadhaar number, you can say unique number assigned to that file. For user, file name matters. For file system, inode number matters, or MFT number matters. So you can see a lot of information from the standard information attribute. As I said, they are stored up to nanosecond precision. You can see, right? The nanosecond part. So there is a mismatch how timestamps are stored and how timestamps are displayed to the user. If you go to any file, like if I go to this file, properties, then I'm able to see the timestamp up to second precision, right? And only 3 timestamps. So the timestamps what we see using this Windows API, using these properties, then using this right clicking and properties, we see these 3 timestamps. Okay, from SI information attribute only. We don't see the timestamp from FN attribute. They may be different. Why? In what cases they may be different? Condition 1 is like you have moved your file from one location to another location. Okay, that is the first condition. You have modified the file timestamp purposely for intention, for hiding your traces. You have modified the timestamp. Malware also use this file stamping method to hide themselves, to maintain the persistence on the system. They use this time stamping along with file name masquerading, like the malware.exe. You can easily identify by using the name. So they first masquerade, the exe file will first masquerade with legitimate applications like cmd.exe. Then they will try to modify the timestamp, that is timestamp. Okay, from the FN attribute you are getting file name, MFT number, then allocated size. So now you can see the two timestamp, two sizes over here, similar to this size on disk and actual number of bytes. So that is also there. If I talk about the what are the 3 blocks assigned to this particular file, so these are the 3 blocks. Block number starting from block number this one to this one, then this one. Okay, so you can now you can use DD to take the dump in the last block, because last block is the block that will be having the slack space. Before the last block, all the blocks will be fully utilized. Last block is the block that will having the slack space. So now I need to, now what I will do, I will write sudo dd if stands for input file. What is your input file? That is this ntfs, that is your image, right? You can take the image, then you can run, you need to provide the block size 4096, then you need to skip, because I'm interested to take the dump of this last block. So before the last block, all the blocks should be skipped. So I will copy this one, because block numbering starts from 0 only. That's why I'm not writing 448. I need to write 49, because last block number starts from 0. Then count only one block I need to take. Then you can give the off, that is the output file where you want to dump this information. So sudo this mnt, then you can like go to g, then you can create your my file.txt. I know, because this is a txt file. I know from fn attributes, right? mysari.txt, you can extend. So if you run this command, then what you are doing, you are taking the dump of this last block, because that is the block that is having the slack space. Okay, so you can run this command and you can get the output, and you can see how many whites are there, how many unutilized whites are there. Now moving forward, using you can also use another commands of tsk, such as icat, then you can use ntfs. So what is the information in the last block? I need to provide the block number. Metadata addresses. Just a second, please. Okay, so over here you can see the using the icat. If you give this information icat, then this is the MFT number, unique MFT number. So you can also see the content, what is written in that particular file. Okay, so if you again, let me just write FLS. I will show you how a PDF file is display stored. So using FLS, let me clear the screen. Okay, so FLS, then so take any PDF file, say this one 15272 152 admitcard.pdf. Okay, so I will use 15272. So I am just picking one PDF file out of my pen drive, and I am seeing the content in. So this is how the PDF file is stored, right? The PDF is the PDF reader is able to decode this information and is presenting this information in human readable format. But if you take the hexadecimal format. Let me just a second. Let me clear the screen again. Okay, so I will write icat sudo icat, then file system type is NTFS, then 15272. I can also use a pipe. So what is the purpose of it? Can take input from one command and can give the output, right? Similar to a pipe. So I am taking the input from this command and doing the hex dump. So now this is actual hexadecimal streams you will see. So this is how your PDF is stored, right? The actual contents in binary format or hexadecimal format. The size of PDF is large, that's why it is taking so much time. So now coming to this, you can also see the content of a particular block. This is showing the content of that of the entire PDF file. Now you can use the blockcat. So blockcat is something that will show you the content of a particular block of the file you are interested in. So before that, I need to know the block number, right? So let me again use this FLS NTFS. I will take this id.txt, that is 3780. Where is that? 30780. So I will take this one, and I need to know the blocks assigned to this 30780. So what are these three blocks? These are three blocks that have been assigned to this file because file size is less than 4 KB. Sorry, 12 KB. 4 plus 4 plus 4. Okay, so this slack space will be in the last block. So I need to use the block cat -f NTFS, then NTFS last block. What is the last block? 2851449. So that is the information in the last block. Can you see this? Only this portion is utilized. So if I again use pipe, you can see all the remaining bytes are 0. Only this much of text data is in the last block. The remaining portion is unutilized. So this remaining portion is slack space. How many bytes I can still store in this particular file? These may be around 20 bytes. So out of 4096 bytes, 20 bytes have been utilized. Remaining 4096 minus 20 I can still hide. That means the block is allotted but not completely utilized. So on this basis, I can still fill 13.65 GB in a completely filled hard disk. You will be amazed or surprised, like how can you store 13 GB more data in a completely filled 1 TB of hard disk? So based on this slack space analogy that I am talking about, you can see over here, I can, this is the end of flag, end of file flag, EOF flag. So whatever I will start writing after EOF flag, that will be added to the file system. So for that I need to bypass the file system. I need to use tools so that I can bypass the file system for writing this. If I use the file system, then file system will log that information. Like there will be there will be guards at the gate of your university, and if you enter into the university, then they will log the information, like at which time you are coming in, what is your name, from where you are coming, what is the purpose of your visit, right? Like if you have been airdropped to that particular department, say cyber security in your university, then there will be no log of at the gate. That's why, like if you want to hide information, some hide information in the last log, you need to bypass the information, and so that this information cannot be cannot be logged. So that is the dumping the last log. Coming to the time stamping utilities, there are so many time stamping utilities you can find on internet. First one is, let me, so I was talking about this bulk file changer. So you can download this application, and with this application you can change the timestamp of any file. So from here, it is the tool by NetSoft. You can download this. Then once timestamp have been changed, how you can detect that? By two methods: comparing the timestamp from SI and FN. That is the first one, and second one is, as I said, no tool is able to set the timestamp up to nanosecond precision. If the nanosecond part that I'm showing you is 0, then definitely we can say that. So before creating the image, I did all the experiments. I created a file with modified timestamps, and I created a file and modified the timestamp. I will show you what is that file. Attendance.pdf. Can you find that somewhere? That will be the file. Let me check. I will show you how you can identify the timestamp modification. Let me. There is a file, attendance.pdf.
So you can just scroll up, sir. The file is gone above, sir. Attendance.
Sorry.
So you can just scroll up, sir. The file is above, sir.
Okay. What is the MFT number? Can you tell me?
Sir, no, sir. I didn't recognize that, sir. So go above, sir. We'll let you know, sir.
Okay,
so here
this
it is
is
7691. Yeah,
okay. 7691. So this is the MFT number. I know the other number, then I can definitely know more about you, right? So 7691. 7691. Then I will use the sudo istat 7691. So over here you can see I have purposely manipulated the timestamp. That is, I installed this operating system in 2018 or 19. I'm not recalling, but I changed the timestamp from created timestamp, that is 1st of January 2000. Can you see that? So for this manipulation, what I did, I ran that set MACE. that tool, that is the advanced tool that do all the manipulation by bypassing the file system. You can see that from both the attributes, I'm not able to get whether my timestamps have been deleted or not. Purposely, I have set to 1st of January. If I do this like 1st of January 2018, then definitely it is very difficult, right? So I'm just leaving you with this, question, that how you can, in such situation, how you can detect the timestamp. If attacker is so much, technical that he have developed the tool that is doing the manipulation in both the attributes. How can you detect that? So that is, I'm leaving you with this question, and now floor is open for the question. Yes. Questions from the audience?
If there are like any questions from the audience, please put your questions. Dr. Bhupinder Singh is ready to take up some questions. Thank you.
You can also post questions in the chat box.
I must say, sir, the session was quite invigorating, and the things what you have told and educated us would comes really handy to learn more about the anti-artifacts in the operating systems itself. Sir, there is one question from Abhishek Charan. Sir, you said about 2 more timestamps. Can you demonstrate them also? And one is from Devbhai Patel, that any GUI base to do such activities. Hopefully not, but yes, the answer should be given by you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Devbhai Patel, there are so many GUI tools that can also do this, what I'm showing you, but I always prefer command line tools, because GUI tools, you don't have so much, you cannot customize that tool, but GUI tools, they are not giving you so much flexibility to customize them, but command line tools, you are having that flexibility. That's why I always prefer command line tools, though it's hard to remember all the commands. Still, all these information about GUI tools, just you use that button and you are not knowing the technicality behind the tool. So anyway, that the GUI tool for the same TSK is Autopsy. You can find that, you search that Autopsy, AUTOPSY. And question from Abhishek, sir, can you two more? Yes, 2 more attributes are there apart from FN and SI. What are those attributes? Index root and index allocation. Those are also storing your timestamp. You can also that part I haven't covered in this because of the time limitation, but there are so many, you can contact me regarding that. So I will let you know the method how you can get the timestamp. Those timestamp from those 2 attributes. Okay, Abhishek, if you are interested, you can contact me offline. Any other question?
If there are any other questions, we'll be taking. Otherwise, the time which we have specified this for this lecture has already been surpassed. Any more questions from the audience side? So there are some feedbacks coming to the chat. Thanks for the informative session. Thank you, sir. And I feel also like the way you demonstrated the things with the practical implementations and with the command prompt. And as you mentioned that the things can be utilized and done with the help of some GUI based tools. But what happens when we are not having the tools installed in certain computers? So it's always better when you remember the commands. So that way you actually utilize your your skills at any particular place itself. So thank you
Right.
so much, sir. It's an honor, and again, it's a privilege to call up on this particular platform. So this was my first time interacting and learning from your side. I was like, the new things have opened for me also. Definitely looking forward for working in this domain as well. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you,
Thank you.
Bhupender sir, or shall we call Bhupi sir?
Okay, thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity so that I can share. Since I am working in this area, so sir, definitely I'm having that kind of knowledge. Well, I'm not sure how much students or how much participants are interested in the area of cybersecurity and digital forensics, but those who are really interested and found my session interesting, then definitely if they want to take this forward, then they can contact me. And thank you, Arjun sir, for nicely conducting this FDP. And I'm very much sure that definitely all the participants will have that learning opportunity under your FDP. Thank you, sir, and thank you all the participants. It was really a nice session, and your questions were really amazing. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. And I will share your contact details if it is approved from your side, so that if any participants
Yes, sir.
wants to contact you or wants to work in some certain domain which is coinciding with your domain. So I'll be sharing the details after getting approved from your side. Thank you,
No,
sir.
no, no, not at all. Okay, sir. Thank you all. Bye bye. Take care.
Okay, sir.
Can I?
Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.